Hey there. So now let's see how to create with Vega-Lite different charts for visualizing tables. So in the D3 track, we show how to create a bar chart like this. We want to replicate that for Vega-Lite. Let's say this is going to be Vega-Lite. Then remember the first thing we need is just importing Vega-Lite, and then we are going to be using that from Vega-Lite API. And then from there, we need to start creating a chart. In this case, we want a mark bar. We want to use for the data, like our actual data. And then here, we're going to be rendering that. Remember that the data for this, the data that I loaded, it's the penguins dataset that comes from the Vega dataset package that contains different penguins and a couple of categorical attributes, and these two categorical attributes and 4 quantitative attributes, as you see down here. You can see how I'm loading that here on this part. So coming back to where we were, let's say if you want to start creating the bar chart, then basically you just say my mark is going to be bars. And then you say that the encoding for this, it's going to be for X. I'm going to use field, and so since we are doing a bar chart, it's going to be nominal. And for that, we are going to be using the species, or you can put that as a separate variable if you want to make it changeable. And then for Y, and this is a very nice thing that you can do in Vega-Lite, is that whereas in D3 we actually had to go and do D3 grouping to actually group the data and get a result like this that counted how many elements you can have. In Vega-Lite you can just say Vega-Lite count. Now it is very important you don't say encode, but encode, and then it gets you a chart like this. And the beauty of it is that if you, for instance, want to switch it to be horizontal, because it's way easier to read it like this, then you can do that. I also forgot to mention if you want to add a title to your chart, which is always very important. In this case, you can say number of penguins. So if you want to see the name, the text next to it, then let's create another one for that. One way that I recommend you doing that, it's, or actually, let's make it in the same one. So basically, what you can do is that you just say, this is going to be a bar. And then I am going to return bar this. But instead of doing that, I am going to put a layer. So basically, I'm going to put my bar, and on top of that, I'm going to put something else. So what I can do is that I can generate another chart that is going to be a text. And then this one will be, like what I could do is just copy and paste this. And then instead of using a mark bar, I could use a mark text, and then change this to be the text, and then just say that I want to layer these two things, and then it will look like this. So if you do something like that, then you can see the two elements. Actually, I still want to use this one. So so it actually positions that in the proper way. However, if you are just going to be reusing the same elements you have on the previous bar, there is something very nice that you can do in the Vega-Lite API, is that you can reuse that chart, and then you just change whatever things you want. Like for instance, I want to change the mark, I want it to be text instead of the other one, and then you just change the things that are different, in this case like this. So that makes it very concise. And if you change something in here, like for instance, you make this X and this other one Y, the text is going to be messed up. Oh yeah, look at that, it still changes properly. So we want something like this. If you want this to be aligned to the right, then you can change this to be, I think it starts with middle alignment. There we go. So now it actually goes to the right, and you can change also the font size and things like that. Remember, for looking at those things, you can say, for instance, Vega-Lite text, and that should take you, if I get any internet back, to the documentation page for Vega-Lite, where you can see all of the possible combinations that you can do. In this case, the alignment, you can also change the font size, font weight, and things like that. Okay. For instance, one of the things I think we can do, it's like at least give it a couple more pixels, but maybe not on Y, but on X. So otherwise it's a little bit to the right. So that will be for that one. Now, the cool thing is that if you, for instance, want to start creating other type of charts, then it's very easy to do so. So for instance, let's say that you want to create a stack bar chart, then the only thing you need to change is that apart from adding the species in here, you can also say, I also want to show the color, and then I think there is an origin in there that we can use. It's called island, and then just by doing that, it gets you something like this. You can see that now my text, it's a little bit messed up, a little bit too much messed up. So for this one, let's get rid of that until I figure out a way of actually fixing that. So this one is closer to what we had on D3. If you want to change, for instance, the color for this, then you can just say here that this is going to use the pastel 2. Let's see if that works. There we go. So now, and notice how it adds immediately like the color legend, which is extremely useful. Something else that is very nice is that you can also add tooltips. Very easy. So if you just say something like this, then when you move the mouse over, it's going to tell you like what are the values for that. Now, continuing this, let's say that you want to create not a stack bar chart, but like a radial chart, so, or like a pie chart or a donut chart. So I think for that, what you want is to use a arc. Now, for species, I'm going to use the color. So this is not going to have the islands, so I can get rid of this. Oh, and by the way, this should have been done on, oh, that was changing the species. That's good. So I can change that in here. So now I have the color changing that, and then I can use the angle for the count, and there we go. Now you have a pie chart of the penguins. So having done the chart, like the pie chart, it's actually quite nice to show the values inside, especially if you don't have that many of them. So I can do something like this. But when you do that, and let's say, for instance, that I want to change the color in here to be value of, and then let's use 777 or 333. So now I see the colors and with the text, and it's showing me the counts, but the problem is that it's actually rotating the element. So there is a secret in there that I just realized, and is that apart from angle, there's another element called theta. So if you change theta, and that it's still going to be doing the same thing in there, but for the texts, it's not going to be rotating them. So when you want to put labels on a radar, like a bar chart or a donut chart, then you can do it like this. The other thing is that we can also say that this is going to have a radius 2, I think, and a value of, in this case, like 100 or something. So that's going to help me in there. And then I think like the key for the text to work, and that's something I learned from the documentation, is that you just need to say that this, or maybe this one, seems like that one doesn't work. So let's try this one in here. So, and I still, oh yes, so maybe the other thing I can do in here is that once I do that, then I can do radius 2 of this one and put another value of this, let's say like 200 or something like that. That's not working. So let me take a look at the documentation. Vega-Lite pie chart, and hopefully, no, that's just the example. Let's say Vega-Lite arc. There is a nice example in there that is the one that I use for noticing that, this one. So then you can see you need to change radius, and this one is changing the outer radius, and and then the stack it's on the theta, and then you can see here the note saying that that's what you need to do in there. So let's say that this is the radius, something like this, and then my color goes away. Maybe it was too big. What about that? That's a little bit better. And then I think this is only showing me one, so I still want to break this into for each one of the elements. So I'm going to say that the detail is going to be using, so in this case actually it's not really going to reuse any of the elements, and the reason why it's only showing one is that I overwrote this one. So in this case I need to bring that one back. Species, so that's saying like I want to see the detail at the level of species, and now I have that element in there. Let's try removing this, if that's maybe making any changes. Could it be this one? And no. Species, missing something here. So I actually made another example of this. And by the way, let's see what happens when I say that I want to show the species here. It's still showing it in there, but it's changing. The problem is that it's not changing the radius. I actually made an example of this, so I just made that, so let me take a look. Sorry for let me cheating on that, and then it should be something like that, and then the text should be changing this, and I am changing the radius is in here, text, detail, and color. So it seems very similar to what I have. The only thing is that this one is changing the inner radius, and this one should be changing radius. I wonder if that's the case. If not, then I will need to keep up on that and then just let you know once I have that. So that one changed in there. Let's say that maybe I want to change the inner radius. Cool. And then not move this one, but the outer radius. Let's have it at 100, and yes. So anyhow, so I'm having issues with the labels, so I'm going to try to find the bug so you don't have to look at that with me. And let me show you another one really quickly that you could do. In this case, let's get rid of this, and is that in the same way that you could well, I should be changing this name, like let's call this base. So in the same way that you can be doing something like this, then you can say that the inner radius goes from 0, and then that gives you a pie chart. Okay, so the other thing you can say is that instead of changing theta, you could say that all of the elements have a value of 1 in theta. So just to replicate another one that we did for that. Well, for the moment, let's leave it like this because that one didn't come as I was expecting. Like that, and then excuse me, you can change the radius to be like, for instance, the count, and then let's get rid of this. That's closer to what I wanted, and something like this. So basically it's kind of like a radar plot, and the only difference is that like all of the elements have the same angle and like different angles, so it's double encoding. So I wonder if when I was trying the value, when I say this one, it's like making them all really small. Like what happens if I do this one? Yeah, the problem is that it's not separating them. So let's leave it like this. I guess one way of fixing that would be like just passing an attribute in the data. So let's see, let me give it a try to that. So let's say that I'm going to do a transform in here. And this is a nice thing that you can use on Vega-Lite to actually calculate new things or add elements in your data. So I can say, like, I just want one as, let's call that one. And then I want my theta to be a field Q of 1. And that's almost it, but it's still putting them as the radius. So that didn't work. So let's go back for this one. Sorry about that. And then let's get rid of this. So let's do it like this. So actually be careful with this type of charts because let's put here a dangerous. Because perceptually it's going to be deceiving because at the end you're going to be looking at the area. So I'm going to try to see if I can fix it, and hopefully you will see the scratchbook with that change. So as you can see, in this type of things, Vega-Lite is way easier to use, despite me failing on this. So that you can use for creating your own charts.